Pat adjusted the audio.
We saw her too.
I know.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, right. Every week.
All right, we are going to convene the May 23rd, 2013 meeting of the Sherborn Board of Selectmen. We will start with the town administrator reading the agenda.
Thank you. 6 p.m. we have the reading of the agenda. 6:05 reorganization of the Board of Selectmen. 6:15 public comment, and I want to note these are estimated times. Then a town administrator report. At 6:40 Western Avenue Intersection Committee. And 6:50 consideration of approval of warrant number 47, which is the off-week payroll warrant. 7 o'clock special state election warrant to sign that. 7:05 consideration of appointment of assistant town treasurer. 7:15 approval of Board of Selectmen minutes. 7:20 Board of Health discussion and consideration of voting for a new Board of Health member to finish out a one-year term. And 8 o'clock, look at future agenda items. Talk briefly about fire chief interviews being scheduled, and presentation by Kelly McClintock at a future meeting. That's a plan for rejuvenating Sherborn's forest. 8:05 topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting, of which I'm not aware of any right now.
No, I have no amendments to the agenda. No. I'm going to accept the agenda as read by you.
Before we get to our first agenda item, I'd like to call for a moment of silence in recognition of the passing of Ken Kroll. Ken is a former selectman, a former member of the Board of Appeals, former town accountant, former council on aging member, and a longtime resident. Would you all rise? Moment of silence. Are we running?
Yeah, we're on, it's just the sound in here.
There's no
Right
sound.
here.
Is there a phase? Because I can't hear you back here.
I think the sound in here.
I think it's the sound of the equipment. You hear that? Look, speak up. All right, our first agenda item. Our first agenda item is to reorganize the Board of Selectmen. And as we introduce this topic, I want to say that the last few months, our chairman, Tom Twining, has not been able to be with us. I've had the reluctant responsibility to serve as acting chair. I want to thank the staff, David and Diane, and I want to thank Peter for the cooperation and the spirit of coming together that allowed us to operate over the last few months.
Back to you, Paul, on that as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. I very much would like to pass the torch on the chairmanship. I have served as chairman these last few months. As acting chairman, I've served 6 years as chairman of this board. I would not like to continue. I don't see a compelling need. We do have a new member of the board that I should have recognized and welcomed.
Thanks, Paul.
Glad to see you here. Glad to have you on board. Glad that we're back to a three-man board.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Peter, you're the next senior guy on the board. I'm wondering if you're ready to, and willing.
Yes, I'm willing. Time will tell if I'm ready, but I'll give it my best shot. This is one of these where you're looking for volunteers and you two people step backwards, I'm happy to do that. Yes.
Well, given that you're
Second.
just starting with, on the board, I think,
I'll second.
okay, before he changes his mind.
Absolutely.
All right, so I would move that Peter be chairman of the board. It's been seconded by Michael. Is there any board discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? It's a unanimous vote. Congratulations.
Well, thank you, and thanks again for the last few months, Paul, where it's been kind of cozy, just the two of us. I appreciate how you stepped up here on that. So do we switch seats? Is that what we do? And
Yeah, we
go in the
do.
middle? Do you want your normal seat back
Yeah,
from
I'm
Mike?
wondering.
by
This
any
here,
chance?
it's gonna be like a whole circle here? Good, okay.
Go for it. All right, move our little
All right.
name tags.
I didn't know the selectmen were so much fun.
Oh, we're just getting started, yeah. Thanks, Mike. All right, I may regret this, but no, thank you for your support. And I do also extend my congrats to you and welcome you to the board.
Thank you, Peter.
I know you've done so much for the town in the past. You'll add so much value here. And we've got a good group of good-looking guys that are hopefully adding a lot to the town and with some smarts. So I look forward to working with all of you. If I don't include you enough, please make it known so that you do get included enough. And I think in our operating procedures manual, it says that the chairman of the board has to help bring on the new guy, so I'll do my best through David to help orient you as best I can, just to the extent of my knowledge. All that being said, I think we're good to go. David, you have some comments? Yes.
Is there a vote on a vice chair or
Oh,
another
yes.
position?
Thank you for reminding me. I would nominate Paul Durensis as vice chair, if Paul is willing.
Yes, I'm quite comfortable in that role. That way I can help you.
Appreciate that. I'm gonna need it. I'm gonna need it. That's great. And we've been seconded, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Congratulations.
I would move that Michael be our clerk.
I would second that. Is there any discussion?
No, there doesn't seem to be anybody else, so.
Yes, you're it.
The pay is wonderful.
All in favor? Congrats, you're the clerk. That's terrific. You'll be great at it. I'm sure of that.
writing.
There you go, yeah. Anything else we need to do in this organizational structure that you can think of?
That's it.
Great. Then I think we're on to public comments, and this will be my first crack at sitting here while public comments take place. So I welcome your public comments. Kitty Sturgis.
Yes, just an observation. I hope it's an oversight, but we are missing the flags on the main street for the parade on Monday.
I had meant to call you on that, David.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not up. They need to be up by
Monday.
Monday. Doesn't someone check with Ed?
Yeah. Yeah, we will.
Ed does that normally? Does CMD does that, or?
Yeah. And they're probably planning to do it. It's just,
Thanks,
it's good to remind us. Thank you.
thanks, Kitty. Appreciate that. Susan Tyler.
Going along with what Kitty Sturgis has said, as far as the parade on Monday, first off, everybody, there is a parade at 10 a.m. on Monday, but I'm hoping it's an oversight that where we have the stand and the presentations are made down here at the split, the grass is a foot tall. All around the War Memorial, the little cemetery there, the grass is a foot tall, and I would hope that that would be mowed before we have the cameras on that area.
That's good advice, too. Thank goodness we have a town administrator to follow up on these
And
things.
observant residents.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Any selectmen gonna match in the parade, or?
Yes,
Yes, I plan to be there, and I think Paul plans to be there. Paul typically speaks.
Usually before the parade, while you discuss it and agree who's gonna be there and what and how.
Well, it's just the way Diane has made sure. I think you're away, and that's fine, you know. I'm gonna go because I'm gonna be around. All right, so I think next on our agenda, David, is your report. And And before you get into the depth of it, David, in your reports, I would like for you, if you could, to always include upcoming community events, just to let us know. So, for example, the matter of this parade on Monday, that's coming up. We have, Farm Pond is opening, right? Is that correct? Things like that. So if you could
Now
talk
you've
about
taken
that.
2 of my items.
All right, good. Then, I don't mean to steal your thunder. But I'll also say, for example, a community event, I went to the COA luncheon today. It was the Volunteer Appreciation Luncheon. Paul was there. And David Sorter was the COA volunteer this year. And he really has proven to be quite instrumental in getting things done for a number of folks in town. And I think it was a great that he was awarded that. The other thing was we had the high school choral society there, and they were just terrific. They're doing their thing tonight at 7, which might explain why we don't have so many people in this room. They're all there to listen to the high school kids. They're great. So there you go, David, all yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Police Chief Thompson wanted to report that Sherborn Police Department did not have any issues specific to after-prom parties or events in town. And he wanted to thank all the parents and the students for being responsible. I think that was not this past weekend, but the weekend before. And then, as you mentioned, activities at preparing the Farm Pond area are continuing. It opens for weekends only beginning this weekend, and apparently the weather's not cooperating so far, as it looks. But it will be ready. I was down there today. Diane and I have been working on a tracking sheet of everything that happened at town meeting and the approved capital items. We finished that, and instead of going through each item individually tonight, I thought I would send you by email the progress report that shows the status of every item. And over the past couple of weeks, I've met with the Traffic Safety Committee about a few issues. Met with the Communications Committee, met with representatives of the Elder Housing Committee about a procurement issue, fielded a few resident and employee complaints, met with the library trustees to hear their concerns this past Tuesday night, attended 2 days this week of a disability monitoring training sponsored by the State Office of Disabilities and the Architectural Access Board, and attended the Council on Aging volunteer luncheon this afternoon, which went very well as I was sitting with a table of dignitaries.
Dignitaries.
All wearing blue
Word is
jackets,
used lightly.
blue suits.
Yes. And last but not least, I wanted to inform the public that we will be closed on Monday, May 27th for Memorial Day. And there will be a Memorial Day parade coming up on that day at 10 a.m., starts at the town garage, goes to Pine Hill Cemetery, and ends at the community center.
This will be your first.
This will be.
You will be there, or?
I'm planning on it right now.
Good.
Yeah, let's hope the weather clears by then. That'll be great. Terrific. Anything else? Any questions for David here at this stage? I think you emailing that progress report will be great.
Okay.
We can keep tabs on that. If anybody has questions, they can go directly to
Okay.
you on that. That's terrific.
Yeah, and I'll check on the flags tonight and
And the
the mowing.
grass.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. All right, so that covers us. We're on to the next item, which is the Western Ave Intersection Committee's request to expend Adessa funds, which the funds are going to be expended for the road I live on. So I'm going to have to recuse myself, Paul, and let you take over on that one. Okay?
Well, I actually had a question about that. I mean, has the money been appropriated for this purpose?
Town meeting voted to
Yes.
set the big one.
So this is gonna come out of that money that's been appropriated.
There was money appropriated in, at the 2008 annual town meeting for traffic calming, and the balance is about $6,800 in that account.
So does this cover that, this observation, the monitoring?
Right.
Will it leave any funds to actually do the work, or are they in another account?
It's in another account, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
is there anyone here from the Western Avenue Intersection Committee? Speak on this? Is the amount $880 total?
That is the, yes, that's the invoice we have for the estimate on deploying a video camera.
And this, essentially, the request comes from Richard Thompson. His suggestion was that we use what he's called the Adessa money, but it's not, that once it's been appropriated by town meeting, it's not the Adessa money.
No, it's not.
He wants to use the appropriation that was voted by the town,
Right.
that may ultimately have come from Adessa,
Right.
but there was a vote of the town.
The town voted to spend Adessa's money, this is now in the general fund.
Yes. And,
That money was always intended for this kind of work.
yes.
That money dates back to when the first Adessa special permit was received by the planning board. I was on the planning board at that time, and that money was a condition of the permit for Adessa to monitor its own truck traffic and allow the town to take measures to address the problems from that truck traffic.
Pay for Sherborn police details.
Correct. At the direction of the Board of Selectmen.
So based on the input from Chief Thompson and the recommendation, which is contained in a memo,
I think someone has a comment out here, Paul, from the Traffic Safety Committee.
okay?
Hi, Susan Tyler, Traffic Safety Committee. There's two items before us, and this is, or two invoices, or one is for a video recorder, to record the intersection during certain peak hours for a week before we make a proposed change to a week after. And that cost is approximately, off the top of my head, $800. They're also, in conjunction with that, we need the surveying company to come out, market the intersection so that we can place some sandbags and barrels and cones to where the intersection, to how it will be changed. So that for the second half of the videotaping, the cones and the barrels and the quote, new designs will be there. So we can see what happens to all of the traffic. And that was a big concern at town meeting, and that's why this is being done now, is before we change the Whitney Street intersection, we want to see what that design change will do, how it will impact the traffic.
I understand all of that. I'm just sticking to the money. I'm trying to
Well,
play
the
Peter
money is two
Caruso here.
things. You mentioned 800, there's also a quote here
But-
from Schofield for approximately $1,200.
But I don't have a bill. I don't
Yeah,
have a bill.
apparently, I wasn't up on the surveying part, so, there's no harm in postponing this till next Thursday night.
Well, based on,
Well, they have an estimate of 1,200 to 1,500, but usually we would have a short
yes, a
number.
piece of
coming
paper
in.
that we can
Right.
actually vote.
I also was wondering, in terms of the surveying, it looks like it's something that our CM&D feels it can't do, but I'm wondering how they otherwise mark pavement and do things. Do they always have a surveyor in to do those kinds of?
No, that's why I would like to hold on this so I can get a read on what that exactly is.
I'm okay with the $880,
Right.
I think I am too.
because I have a bill, it's itemized, it looks reasonable, and everybody who has written to us says it's okay. It's a little bit more than what traffic safety thinks it is, but it's still, it's just 10% higher.
So if I could point out, it says in this invoice that in order to reserve the requested dates, it would need to be returned to the vendor. I wonder if that's something we should act on tonight, so at least we can lock in those dates.
Yes, I was gonna propose we do the $880.
Good.
On the other one, do we know? Well, let's do this one first. Can I move that we approve the expenditure of $880 to Precision Data Industries LLC for purposes of their video work as described in their proposal?
It's really traffic monitoring work for the video.
Traffic
I
monitoring.
second that, Paul.
Any discussion? Elliot?
These are scenic roads, so before you start digging with any shovels or anything else, you'll have to get an okay by the planning board.
This is a video monitoring process. Hearing no other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Now, on the other item, apparently Schofield Brothers has given a verbal estimate to,
I think I have it here. I'm trying to load it for you. A copy of the invoice that John Croshaw sent me.
great,
Yeah, I'd still be more comfortable waiting to let David see why it is we need to pay a surveyor to mark pavement.
I don't want to lose the opportunity to get it done if there's a time
Well,
issue.
And that's fine, because, excuse me, we're gonna do 1 week of videotaping prior to doing any kind of installation. So we do have the time period here where we can implement the videotaping while we decide as far as the survey.
Yeah, but we may not be meeting, we are meeting
We are meeting.
30th,
Right.
so we're meeting next week. Okay.
Right, so long as the change is implemented before school gets out.
All right, so let's hold on the second.
Yeah.
Agreed?
Agreed.
Thanks.
Okay.
Come back up. Back in the saddle.
You guys really do look good from out there.
Question your eyes.
When we don't have the money man here,
Yeah,
it's hard to fill those shoes.
I understand, yes, you did fine, you did great. Speaking of money, we have now consideration of the approval of warrant 47, which I know that David has looked at and signed off on. I had a quick look at it, so I welcome a motion or...
Move approval.
Second, I also looked at it.
Okay, there's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on this item? All in favor then? Great. I get the sign up on the top line.
She spelled
Oh
all.
my gosh. Great, we are going along. We're half hour ahead of schedule here. Okay, so now we have to do something, and David, maybe you can fill us in a little bit on the special state election warrant that we have to vote on and sign. And this is right here. This is for the special election for US Senate, I understand. And we have an item for the constables of the town of Sherborn, where they're required to notify and warn the inhabitants of said town who are qualified to vote in the special election to vote at Sherborn Town Hall, 19 Washington Street, Road 16, on Tuesday, the 25th day of June, 2013, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. for the following purpose: to cast their votes in the special state election for the candidates for the following office: Senator and Congress for the Commonwealth. And so we hereof fail not, and make return of this warrant with your doings thereon at the time and place of said voting, given under our hands this day of May 23rd, 2013, Sherborn Board of Selectmen. So may I have a motion to approve this warrant?
Second.
All in favor? Any discussion? All in favor?
Yeah, just under discussion. Folks, there's an election. And at the primary on April 30th, there were not many people who went to vote. This is your opportunity to decide who will be the United States Senator for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Please exercise your right to vote. June 25, Tuesday, here in Town Hall, right here.
Just the one office is the.
Just the one office.
Suppose you vote no on this election.
Well, we just voted, but we'll do that vote again, just to cement it. All in favor? All right, I'll sign this thing.
Do we sign this one, David? Is that the?
This is the signature
It's
one.
the actual.
This is it. Yep, it's in a folder, so it's an important one. Yeah, yeah. That's
Your
the-
handwriting's better
that's
than
the-
David's. I think you should put the.
I should have put it. Thank you. Appreciate that heads up. Needed all the time. Okay. Good. Next, we have on the agenda consideration of appointment of an assistant town treasurer, and what we have is a letter from the treasurer that we have to
Do we
sign.
need to sign this, or do you?
No.
So you're all set?
Yeah.
Where under this arrangement, as I understand it, David, you can edify us further, the treasurer makes the appointment, but it's requires the approval of the Board of Selectmen.
Right, state statute allows the treasurer to appoint one assistant that will basically fulfill all the duties of the treasurer in his absence. And that position has to be, the person assuming that role has to be approved by the Board of Selectmen. So it's not technically appointed by the Board of Selectmen. You're approving
His appointment.
his appointment.
Right.
It's sort of a checks and balances
Right.
between.
Right, and what we have is a letter from Descom Hoagland III, our treasurer. He says, "Gentlemen, this is to inform you that I am reappointing Heather Peck of 15 Sawin Street, Sherborn, as Assistant Town Treasurer effective immediately for a term that will expire on May 10th, 2016, or until a successor is appointed. Under the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, this appointment requires your approval, MGL Chapter 41, Section 39A. To indicate your agreement, would you be kind enough to sign below and return this document to me?" So I welcome a motion to approve this appointment.
Can we have some discussion, or?
Yep.
I mean, this request for a position, I guess this is a paid position. I don't have
Mhm.
any way of evaluating Heather Peck's work. I don't doubt that she does the job. I don't have anybody here from the treasurer's office to tell us why they need an assistant.
Right.
I know that most towns, or many towns our size, have a combined treasurer and collector office, which does presumably a greater share of work, and some of those towns do have an assistant treasurer. I just do not know, and I don't see anybody here to tell us why it is that we would need an assistant treasurer here. I also know under the statutes that if there's a question of the treasurer being absent, the Board of Selectmen is empowered to appoint a temporary treasurer to assume the treasurer's duties until the treasurer is able to resume their office. I also noticed that this is a 3-year term. You know, again, I'm not sure why we're being asked to appoint someone for 3 years, particularly during a time when the organization of town government has been up for extended discussion. So for all those reasons, I will be voting no on this request.
The person who's in there right now, this would be, I think, her second term. I don't think there's anything that requires it to be a 3-year term.
Yeah, the statute doesn't say 3-year term.
Yeah.
It's a budgeted position so far, and it's a nominal number of hours. Is that correct? It's a non-benefit position at this stage of the game.
Right, it's budgeted,
Provides
it's in the budget, but.
services, but I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
and I do understand there's information that the treasurer's been requested to provide that hasn't been provided. So I guess I question why we should be appointing an assistant treasurer to an office that has not come through with some of the information that at least I understand was requested of him previously.
Well, in deference to the newbie on the board, I agree that we should hold this pending further information that would satisfy.
Great,
your-
Good, thank you.
I concur then. That makes sense. So we'll hold off on this, and
Okay.
you'll work with the treasurer to see if we can address some of what Michael's questioning here?
Yes.
Great. Great, that's what we like, is questioning how we do things and putting it all together. Terrific.
Mr. Chairman, you're too efficient. You're running way ahead of the clock here.
Well, you guys aren't talking enough, I guess. You know, if you want to go on further about that last item, feel free. You know,
Can't you do a Jay Leno monologue?
well, you don't want to hear that.
I'm going to give him time to write it for next week.
Well, yeah. There was this mushroom walks into a bar and sits down next to a woman at the bar, and he says, "May I buy you a drink?" And she says, "No, I don't accept drinks from vegetables." And he says, "Why not? I'm a fun guy." Okay, that's my only Jay Leno joke. Fun guy? All right. Killed a little time. We are. This is a professional board here. Back to town business. Eh?
Can I revoke the chairmanship vote here?
Yeah,
Fungus a vegetable.
yeah. Well, that's part of the joke. Is it a vegetable? I don't know. That's right. See, look at this. We have a debate as to whether a mushroom's a vegetable. I know, I'll just keep going. All right, we're next on this agenda is the approval of the Board of Selectmen minutes for March 28th, 2013. I know you weren't on the Board of Selectmen, so we're not going to ask you to vote on that necessarily, so
Move approval.
I would second. And any discussion? All in favor? Abstentions?
Abstention.
Very good, thanks. Okay, so we're a good few minutes ahead of our 7:20 appointment with the Board of Health. And, but we have future agenda items that we can be talking about. And David, if you could cover the ones we've listed, and then I'm gonna add some things from my perspective, and maybe the other folks have some thoughts, because when I was at the first board meeting a year ago, I had a half dozen things that I suggested, and the other guys embraced them all.
That's great.
So it was the honeymoon effect. So if you think of anything,
Thank you.
now's the time to go for it. But David, go ahead. What do you?
As you know, the search committee has been holding interviews for a full-time fire chief for some time now, I believe a couple of months. And hopefully in the next week or so, they'll be narrowing that down to 3 names, bringing forward to the selectmen. And we'll schedule those for interviews on one night. Right now, we have it tentatively scheduled for June 13th.
Right, and there's a bit of time pressure from the current chief wanting to move on in the sunset, right?
So we would hope, maybe after the interviews are all held in one night as opposed to breaking them up over different nights, that maybe even the discussion could occur that night after the interviews.
Yep.
And we'd keep the agenda light so that there would be not much else on there.
But we advertised,
Yes.
and we got how many candidates applying?
I think there was around 20, in the 20s.
And they've been doing preliminary screening?
Yes.
So on June 13th, they're going to have 3?
On June 13th, that's when I'm scheduling the interviews. So hopefully, I can't
Or
remember,
3?
The 3 finalists.
3 or 4 names I'm anticipating them to put forward.
It's done, it's done.
You done?
The last time we had only 1, and we're trying to encourage them not to come with just 1, but to come with some choices. So that's why I asked.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You weren't here for that
Yes, it does.
episode, but the last time we did a search with
Yeah.
for fire chief, we came up with only 1
Okay.
candidate.
I've been in touch with the committee, so there will be a minimum of 3 names.
Okay.
It's the 4th one, I'm not sure will be there or not.
I was wondering, I don't know whether you might think this was a good idea, if we could provide a list of questions. For example, when we get to the Board of Health, we saw that they had some specific questions that the candidates responded to in advance, and I found that very useful, and I think we could adopt some sort of simple, 3 to 6 questions
Right.
that each would have to respond in writing to, so that it gives us a little bit more on their background, how they,
Right.
versus us looking at just their resumes.
I have a greater expanded process that I'll be sending out to you that you can
Okay.
review and send your comments back to me so I can make any adjustments. And then we have the questions that will go out to you. You can edit the questions or maybe add your own questions if you want.
But I'm
But
talking
that's-
about them writing something back to us in advance of the interview questions.
Right, and then there are summaries of each candidates that,
Good, okay.
with their resumes that will get distributed.
Because one of the things I found the last time is I found it, I had to rely on the committee, the selection committee, to evaluate the expertise of the individual that we wound up talking to.
Right,
Looking at a resume and it says qualified for this, this, and this, I didn't know what half that stuff was, so
right.
assuming that they're all qualified, it's.
These are all,
other issues.
these are all strong candidates and any one of them could do it,
Great.
yeah.
That's terrific, and appreciate that committee working so hard to do this.
They have
I know
been.
they have been working hard, meeting quite often, too.
Are they doing an assessment center of some kind?
I thought that I don't know if they held an assessment center. I can go back and look, but I didn't think that that's, as in the assessment center that I know where you bring in outside chiefs and
Yeah.
stuff. I don't believe that was done, but I'll double check. It may have been
The
done.
point of an assessment center is you bring in these outside experts and you have them do drills.
Oh.
And you're asking questions like, if the house is burning down, and there's a 6-year-old about to die at the left end and a 85-year-old at the right end, where do you go? What do you do? How do you deploy your resources? And each person answers the questions. And then the panel of chiefs looks at that and it basically grades them. A, B, C, D, E, F. And that way, you test their knowledge, and you've got, it's better than a civil service exam type of thing.
Yep.
But it allows you to grade applicants based on their technical skills,
Right.
their knowledge of what to do.
So are they doing that, or that you're gonna look into whether they can do that in time?
I'm not sure what they did early on in the
Okay.
process because it was, started originally well before I got here with the first round. I don't know how many of these finalists were in that round, but I know in the second round, they did whatever they did in the first round,
Yep.
but I'll have to verify whether it was an assessment center. I haven't heard of outside people coming in and reviewing these candidates, but I'll have to verify it.
Well, it doesn't have to be outside people coming in and reviewing them. You can actually, there are places that you can send them to
Okay.
where they get tested. They're like commercial
Right,
operations. You pay them,
right.
they'll run these tests and they'll give you reports on each of them.
Yeah, so I'll have Chief McPherson write up a summary of what exactly their process has been, so that when I send my write-up of the process from here on out, then you'll have that
Good,
to judge.
good. Any thoughts or comments?
I don't, I know in the future meeting with the moderator also, it's some point.
Yes,
That's, we.
Next
she-
week.
We had to move that, yeah.
so that's next week. We also have the CPA firm coming in next week.
Mail is ready.
So if you have the town's audit report from June 30th, 2012, make sure Mike
Yeah.
has that, and the management letter comments. And if you could review that, it's a lot of fun
I'm
reading.
sure it is, yeah.
But it's an opportunity to meet with them, they can tell us how,
That's good.
their
That's good to
thoughts
learn
and so
about
forth.
what's
So,
going on.
so that would be good. The other thing I'd like to bring forward, and so think about it, and I don't know when we'll schedule it, is the consideration of this board appointing a long-term financial planning committee, you know, that reaches into all these other areas and tries to come back and say, here's the big picture. It's not redundancy, but we can talk about it, so I'd like to put that on the agenda. If that resonates with either of you, I'd like to consider that.
Sounds like a fair idea.
Yep. The other thing, David, I know you've been working on the appointments, and we have an obligation, or there may be some vacancies, so there's some work being done on that. I just want to be sure we're not dropping the ball on that.
No, we posted that,
You
we
wanna
we
schedule
know
that?
which positions are vacant,
Okay.
and did we have a closing date?
June 10th.
Yeah, so, we'll
Where
have.
people are coming, committees are coming
Well,
back and saying we have
sent,
vacancies.
We sent a letter to each chairman of each committee,
Okay.
letting them know they have vacancies, and then we sent a separate letter to the actual person on the committee asking if they were even interested.
So we'll have more knowledge of when the time is right to have appointments on our schedule.
Right.
One of these days.
Right, and you also want to take a look at maybe combining some of those.
Sunset.
Right, right, so I look forward to that
And
discussion.
as part of that, I hope we can figure out a way to reach out to some of the newer residents in town, and some of the people who are just starting out on their professional careers. You know, we value all the long-term volunteers. It was nice to see in this election, there were some new faces.
Yeah.
And, you know, it would be good to try to encourage, recruit people who are civically minded in that way to serve on some of these boards.
One thing we do in other towns is we actually publish a list of the committees and that there are openings. That way people can see in one place that there are 10 or 15 committees, and there are all these different things.
So right now, we've only communicated with the committees or the committee
Chairs.
chairs, right?
Chairs.
And said if you have vacancies and you have candidates, and
I
you've
told them-
prepared a questionnaire on that, correct? Yes,
There was an application. that went out.
application, okay. But what Paul's talking about is a broader scope in the
Put something
press and on the website.
Put something
We can just
in-
post the list of anticipated vacancies that we have, we can just post that list and say these are the
Yeah.
anticipated vacancies.
And in the
Interested in applying.
Press, right? Yeah, they-
Well, but the way we do it in another town was they list all the positions. Not
Just
that you
vacancies.
think someone's not gonna re-up for it, but if like 2 positions are up on a board,
Yep.
say Board of X 2 positions,
Yeah,
even though there may be somebody there.
right, yeah, no, when I mean anticipated vacancy, that it's a seat that's up regardless of whether somebody's already said that they're interested in it, there is no in your policies, it shows that there's no guarantee of incumbency getting the seat, so.
Right.
But we can put a list up of those seats that are up.
Right. And I'd like to also see us be more disciplined about having some of these committees come into us. We thought that was a good idea. If we could just be sure that happens. So let's work together to make sure we schedule on an acceptable level of frequency some of these committees, you know, that they can come in and chat with us, tell us what they're doing, and we get to support what they're doing at the same time, so. And,
Thompson has an idea about combining
yeah,
traffic safety with something else, and I'm not sure what all the something else's are, so maybe
There's,
yeah, I'd
we
like
should
to
have him.
we've been talking about that, and then the Traffic Safety Committee itself is noted in the bylaw, so we would have to look to see what that structure is going to be and whether it affects traffic safety or if we're putting other things into traffic safety within the bylaw.
good, so at some point, we'll have that agenda item as a
Yeah.
good discussion, because I think
Yeah.
that's, makes great sense.
Yeah, I think that was brought up last year from what I understand, and
Right,
so it still needs to be done.
good. And so I think that covers our future agenda items. Anything else you want to talk about? Okay, you're good?
I'm good. I think there's someone in the audience with.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you for coming, we moved things along fast tonight.
Now, I'm here for the 6:40 item on the agenda,
Yes,
and
sir.
I did cancel an important appointment to be able to come here, because usually I come in at 9 o'clock in the evenings, when I see you have early meetings. So I did cancel my appointment. And firstly, I'd like to welcome the new selectmen to the board. And what I would like to suggest is tonight, if you could approve both the video recording and the survey of the intersection, because the goal is to try and get this test done before schools come out. And the test is going to take 2 weeks. Video recording for a week before, survey the proposed April the 18th final plans, and then video again for a week to see the impact on traffic at that intersection once the barrels, combs, or sandbags have been put in place. And if you add the two proposals together, they come to $2,380. And there's $7,000 still remaining from the 2007 and 2008 town meeting appropriations. So I'd suggest the money be taken from that.
If I could just explain what took place, I had to recuse myself, but I can at least tell you what the
Okay.
board did. They did vote for the video portion
Yeah.
out of those funds that you described, which is a prior town meeting authorization of
Good.
use of Adessa funds. They wanted to hold so that David, at least a week, so that David could look and see whether CM&D could do the markings in the road to cover the cones and so forth. So it's a week's delay on the second part, just to be sure that the town make sure the town is unable to do it, therefore we need to incur the expense.
What I'd like to suggest is approve the potential expenditure and leave it with the town administrator to decide whether we have Schofield do the marking and staking or whether he has an alternative. But at least we can get the show on the road.
Well, before I turn it over and recuse myself if they want to reconsider that, could you just re-explain the timing element in terms of what you're trying to do and when?
Yes, I believe that schools come out on June the 26th. And we've got to award the project to the video people and the surveyors if in fact we go with Schofield. And then the videos would be up for 2 weeks, which would be Monday through Friday, probably in the peak hours from 7 to 9.
But the key is you want that done while school is in session.
Yes, and that was something we discussed at the Sherborn Traffic Safety Committee.
Because that wasn't
with them. And it was very important from their point of view, otherwise we'll have to wait again for school to come back into session.
The video, you have video taking place a week before the cones go in, and then after the cones go in,
Yes.
which would be after the roads have been marked.
Yes,
So
and then remember, Sherborn Traffic Safety and our committee has to evaluate the recording
Understand.
and then plan to come before you with our recommendation. So it's very important, you could vote on the 2,380 to be expended, if necessary, by the town administrator.
Well, I would defer to my fellow meeting members on it.
First of all, you weren't here. I asked
I was here
if
on
there was
time.
anybody. We got to it early.
Yeah.
We got to it early, so I apologize.
Right.
But the agenda item came up and we had a bit of a time finding out where the money was, who had the money. And then we only had one bill, which was $880. We don't have any other bill.
I have it all. Let me give it up.
So I was concerned, I didn't want to approve a bill.
Sure,
But-
sure. This is where the money would come from.
I feel like we discussed this already, and we had Mrs. Tyler's input on it. I think we can wait till next week, and
It's
And take this
usually
up.
on the agenda for 6:40. I was here at 6:40.
I understand.
Right. So that, and this is the Schofield Brothers proposal. And Diane was there as well. This was the 840.
Yeah, this was the missing ingredient. I have that, it's just we only had one contract.
No, that was sent through to Selectmen's office as well.
But what, in order for us to approve this, we need to have two votes.
Okay.
And we decided to approve one and to hold the other till next week. We meet,
No, then I had to cancel another appointment.
I'm not sure we need further input. I think we understand what's going on, and we can look at it. You're welcome to come, but I wouldn't hold it up on that basis or change your appointment on that
Now,
basis.
what I'd like to do is have the proposals awarded to the two firms, so that they obviously have schedules to meet. And the sooner we can award it, we're more likely to get the work done before the school is closed.
well, the fundamental question was, why can't this Schofield work be done in-house? Why do we have to go to an outside vendor?
And Paul, if I can point out, the amount on this invoice is not the same as the amount that was in the emails. It's a $1,500 proposal.
That is the proposal. Right.
So how do you get to 2380?
880
Yes,
plus 1,500.
okay.
Yeah.
I'd still rather take it up next week. I think we asked David to look into something. I think we should stick with that.
But that's your answer. It takes two votes to get something done. We've already voted this so far for tonight. I'm sorry.
Okay, well then, could I ask if this is customary, if you have an agenda and you have a time, and the chairman of the committee makes an effort to get here in time,
We put on the
is this
agenda,
customary?
we put on the agenda that all items are approximate and are subject to change. Isn't that somewhere here, it's a fine print that you guys reduced down to?
A micron,
You need a
microscope.
microscope.
needs to be larger.
Is the last sentence.
We usually say,
Make that a little bigger so people can see it.
No, but your point is well- Now, I'm a resident, but your point's well taken. If only the new chairman was more sensitive to that, and if only the town had known that you were expected to attend, what we didn't know that, so. That's up to the residents.
The selectman's office knew that, because I had a suggestion from the police chief that I be here at 6:40. So I therefore responded to him with copies to the town.
Mr. Crush, if it would help, I don't think my thinking would have changed any, even if you've been here at 6:40. I appreciate your input, but I do want the town administrator to look into why our own CM&D department cannot do the work that you're asking Schofield to contract for.
A comment on that is, I did at this Sherborn Traffic Safety Committee meeting speak with Ed Wagner with the plans in front of us. And he said he could not do the work.
Ted wasn't there?
He was
No,
there
he-
at the
he
Sherborn
came in
Traffic
late.
Safety
He came in
Committee
late.
meeting. We stood and discussed whether he could do the work, but if he could, that's wonderful. But I'm just giving you my comments from having discussed it with him.
I just realized I'm acting chair here again. Thought I got rid of that, but could we not have discussions going on in the back there with, while someone is speaking? If somebody wants to speak, please raise your hand and ask. It's just basic courtesy. If any of you were speaking and someone was talking in the back and contradicting you, you would want me to say the same thing too. So everybody needs to be protected. So Don, you had the floor, you were making your points. It takes a unanimous vote of the two of us to do this. My issue was I had no bill. I now have a bill. I see the bill, I know Schofield Brothers, I know the quality of the work, seen what they've done in the past. I don't have a problem with going forward and doing this. I know it'll be a great job. But in deference, we can't approve this until he's satisfied. And he has questions. The town administrator is going to address those questions. And if we do it 1 week from now, how are you really prejudiced?
It's a week that is lost.
On one of the items.
Yes.
Which is not gonna happen for another 3 weeks. The survey work doesn't have to happen next week or the week after. It can't happen next week or the week after, because you wanna have a before scenario.
We need to know how long it's going to take to put the barrels, the cones, or the sandbags out once the survey has been done.
Well, that would be a good thing for Mr. Williams to look into as part of his investigation before next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the good things is that at the Sherborn Traffic Safety Committee, I presented the set of final plans dated April the 18th to Ed Wagner, and we looked at them together, and he said to me that his people couldn't do the work, but if you find he can, that's fine.
My confusion is, I remember the CM&D director saying
Yes.
that they could do it, so that's what I'm confused on. And then the other thing, I don't mean to throw a curveball in it, I'm not sure if these items, since they're already approved for a specific purpose, if they even need the Board of Selectmen approval before they're committed. That may be a chief procurement officer thing, and that your approval comes when it's time to do the payment on it. So knowing that that's when your approval comes, I would clear up whether there was going to be any problem in advance of letting something out like that.
Do you
But
think you have the authority to go ahead without waiting for next week? Is that what you're saying?
I think so, but I would have to go back to the original article to see, was this money approved to be expended with the, approval of the selectmen or something like that, but
John, what's
So
that?
that's-
He's got that slightly
that's the
package he just had.
confusion I had on that.
Does the warrant article say that it's to be spent by the town administrator or
It
by
does
the
not
board of
say the
selectmen?
town administrator.
Who does it say
It's
it's
the board of
supposed to be?
selectmen.
I don't think it's unreasonable for David to take a few days, however long it takes till next meeting, to ask CM&D why they can't paint some stripes or circles or whatever they need to paint on the road and measure from the intersection. I don't think it's maybe it's very complicated, but I'm not sure the level of precision that a surveyor would bring to the project is necessarily as important as maybe others may think it is if all you're trying to do is figure out traffic patterns. Road configurations change slightly. As long as it's not a significant departure, I don't know why it couldn't be done by somebody who has a can of spray paint and a tape measure.
No, I must explain that it is more difficult. And the chairman of the Traffic Safety Committee even sent me an email asking if whoever does the survey would have a PE stamp. So it has to be done accurately enough so that the island is specifically placed where it is intended to be according to the design. And the curves are where they expect it to be. And you cannot just scale it off the drawing. You have to set up with a theodolite or transit and stake it out very carefully. And that's why it should be done by a qualified surveying team. So it's not, there's no point in doing a test if it's not done accurately in accordance with the final design. Otherwise, it's a guess.
Sounds good to me, but I think we already decided this for the,
I think we
for
should
the
just
time being,
stick with
so-
what we're doing. I feel like we spent a lot of time on this, and we should move on to other items.
Okay, just before you do, Mr. Town Administrator, if you could note that the proposal from Schofield talks about in accordance with the conceptual plans. And my email to them said in accordance with the April the 18th plans. So there is a difference. The conceptual plans were back in January.
Okay.
We want the final April the 18th plans. And they don't mention the island in their proposal. And that's very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Good, thanks, gentlemen. Sorry to put you through that.
I'll let the chairman deal with.
Elliot, yes, sir.
I'm just gonna comment, if you're gonna do any traffic surveys, make sure you do it while schools are in session.
I think,
Because there are many, many teachers, instructors, in not just the Sherborn schools, but colleges and surrounding communities that commute through Sherborn, and all sorts of delivery trucks that deliver to these schools. And there is a tremendous decrease in traffic when school is not in session. I live on a main street, and I know that sometimes I can back out onto the street when school is not in session. I would never think of it when school is in session, unless the freight train's blocking the crossing. Thank you.
thank you. All right, well, so we're up to our 7:20 where you guys are posted for, the Board of Health is posted at 7:20. So we're actually almost 15 minutes ahead of schedule.
We just lost one of our Board of Health members, too.
Yes, but they're actually not posted till 7:20, so I think we have to wait until 7:20 if I understand that correctly.
And are we seeing the candidates tonight, or we're seeing recommendations from the health members?
I think we're gonna, well, we'll see what we do when they get here and speak. No, but they're not posted until 7:20, that's the point. So you're not posted till 7:20. So we're gonna, I think, take a
More
brief
jokes, more mushroom
recess.
jokes, or-
I have, that was the
You're
only
out?
joke I
You're out
have.
of mushroom
The
jokes?
rest I have are not appropriate in any environment, I'm told, so.
It's your turn, Michael, to
Yeah.
do your maiden speech.
I don't have a maiden speech.
So let's take a 15-minute recess until 7:20 when the Board of Health will convene. Okay, does that sound good? Do I need a motion for a recess?
Yeah, but let me just think for a minute,
Okay.
if there's anything else that we should be, or
Sure.
could be.
Topics not reasonably anticipated.
One thing we could talk about is just overall meeting schedule, or our philosophy about overall meeting schedule. You know, I think there, and I saw how efficient Peter was running things until the wind left, came out of his sails, but he got us on the right.
It's on a roll.
He got us on the right track. And I think there's a lot to be said for efficient meetings and also for not meeting more often than we need to. And I also think we can get a lot more done with that approach. There may be times when we have to meet every week, but I just as soon see us meet 3 times a month or 2 times a month, and
We're all in agreement with
Try to
you.
get that
Unfortunately,
done.
there's a little legal problem that forces us to meet every week. And that is, we have people who need to get paid every week. We have asked the town administrator to negotiate with 2 unions, impact bargaining with 2 unions. And you remember, impact bargaining is you sit down, you say, this is what we're gonna do. If they don't agree with it, then you can go ahead and do it. But for some reason, for a year now, we can't get that impact bargaining done. So we have in place a requirement that we have to sign all of these papers every week. I sound a little frustrated I am, because I agree with you.
No, and my understanding was that we could sign them in the town administrator's office based on his initial review of those without needing a meeting. It's just a ministerial act in that case.
It's not the best practice. And one of the things that George Pucci taught us was that very thing. He felt that that was enough of that, a little more stuff in the back room, have it done up.
And I'd recommend a, 8 o'clock in the morning or 7:30 in the morning meeting where we can come in for 10 minutes, take care of that business, and then be on our way.
We have done that in the past, and we can do that. I think you're still looking into what the true best practice might be so that we can find a way to do these without having to come on a Thursday night
On
and
that-
fill an agenda,
Right.
as Mike's talking about. So if we can find a way, whether the way we've been just looking at, or just coming in where a couple of us show up for a posted meeting on a Thursday morning or Friday morning
One
and get it
agenda
done.
item or-
And we have done that in the past, so that we can at least try to reduce the frequency of these big Thursday night meetings. I think that's great. I think the other thing you mentioned was the time of meetings and the day of meetings. I know Paul's got some limited evenings. I'm happy with the Thursday nights.
I'm happy with it for the time being, and,
Yeah.
we can keep that as an open discussion item in case it doesn't work for any of us.
Diane and I,
We always do that. Anytime anybody has a problem, we try to reschedule it.
David, you had something?
I was just going to say that Diane and I talked that as soon as we get this, after the 13th with the chief interviews, that we were going, this week agenda, the off agenda, I'm sorry, not the agenda, the off
The
warrant.
small warrant.
Right. Those
Every other week.
meetings, we were going to try to not schedule anything and see if we can do that.
Right.
And then if we can do that and those meetings are just a warrant, then that forces us to have to do something else, whether it's in the morning or coming in and signing them, reviewing them
Right.
during the week, and then officially
Approving them.
voting it at the next open meeting.
Yeah, which I like that idea, if we can get to that and still.
I believe the treasurer would release the checks if he had it signed, and then you could bring
Subject
it into
to
the next.
approval at the next open meeting. And, that might achieve the George Pucci desire for best practices. So I'm all for trying to find that approach if Paul's comfortable on it. So we'll see where that goes. So you're saying after the 13th, we'll take a real hard look at that.
Yeah, we've already, when we're scheduling out, trying to go off.
So, for example, we know that the June 6th, we're unlikely to have a Thursday night meeting because that's school graduation. Paul's the
Right.
guest speaker there. And so we'll have to find a way to approve this warrant in another manner.
Yeah, and we have found other
Ways to do
ways that we've been forced to approve it, so.
So I'm comfortable with that approach. Anything else? So we're 10 minutes closer, we're closer to where we need to be. What else? Do you have any other things, observations of selectmen's meetings? Are you good at the 6 o'clock start?
I can tell you, the room looks very different from this side of the table.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. And it's good to have folks here, so the more the merrier. I think it shows that people are paying attention. Appreciate that.
So I move we go into recess to 7:20.
Second.
All in favor? Any discussion? Let's go. I'd like to welcome everybody back to the Board of Selectmen's meeting, May 23rd. We had a 10-minute recess and appreciate everybody's patience. We have the Board of Health with us, and I'd like to, I understand you need to convene your meeting, if you would, please. Peter?
That's correct. Noting the hour of 7:20, the Board of Health has a meeting scheduled for May 23rd. I hereby call that meeting to order. I am Peter Lifford, I'm the chair, and Vice Chair Darrell Beardsley is with me. Thank you.
Well, it's great to have you here, and we're on an important matter here, is to appoint someone to serve out the balance of a term of a member who's left the Board of Health. It's a one-year term, essentially, and you've had 3 candidates step forward. Based on the information I've read, every one of them would serve the town well. Not everyone will be appointed. So the 2 that don't get appointed, I hope they step up into other situations to serve the town because it's well appreciated. The names of the folks that have, I'll name the names, Peter, because you mentioned that you'd like me to. We have Dr. Christopher Quinn has expressed an interest. We've had Keisha Lifton, who's expressed an interest. And I apologize if I say this incorrectly, but Dhruv Kashal has expressed an interest. Each one of them brings something unique to the table, and again, appreciative that they've expressed their interest. So how would you like to proceed to fill out
Well,
your
first of all, I'd like to,
board?
in fact, like to tell you and everyone the process we proceeded with. We made notice, public notice, and website notice, et cetera, et cetera. We did receive 3 items, 3 letters of interest. Following that, we received resumes and curriculum vitae. And we then proceeded to ask each candidate 5 questions, ask them to respond in writing, and we then evaluated those 5 questions. The board met, and the 2-member board at that time met, and we did discuss the candidates. We did, at that point, we're not able to reach consensus, but we did present to the Board of Selectmen 2 candidates that we felt should be considered for the position, being Keisha Lifton and Dr. Chris Quinn. And by statute, we are now here, 5 votes, 1 per person of the 5 of us to decide who should fill the Board of Health seat for 1 year.
Great, great. Could David or maybe Paul, you may know how the process, does one of us make a nomination and second, and then we see where the vote goes, or what is the typical process? And we all vote together, I take it?
I'm prepared to make a nomination.
I had a question first, but, I'll defer. If the question would be, we were given packages from all 3 candidates. Are all 3 candidates up for consideration? Are we considering only the ones that are recommended?
You can consider any one of the 3. And in fact, are any of the candidates here?
They are not. By the way, in talking to Keisha Lifton, I advised her that it was basically, this was an administrative operation, and that the candidates were not going to be interviewed or asked questions at this meeting. Their attendance was not necessary. So it's not for lack of interest that they're not here, is my point.
Well, Paul, you mentioned you would like to make a nomination, so
Yes,
please do.
I would like to nominate Chris Quinn, Dr. Chris Quinn.
Do I hear a second? I would second that nomination.
And I'll explain my thinking on that. First, there was a divided recommendation from the Board of Health. It was one of you recommended Dr. Quinn, and one of you recommended Keisha Lifton. But before you all reach that conclusion, the prior member of the board, Bill Worth, sent a memo to me in which he gave his opinion of the candidates, and he recommended and nominated Chris Quinn. So in essence, we have the former member of the Board of Health suggesting Chris Quinn. We have the present member of the Board of Health suggesting Chris Quinn. So there's 2 of them. And then I looked at the paperwork and the answers, and I concur that he seems, in my judgment, to be an outstanding candidate for this position. That's why I've nominated him.
I was impressed with Dr. Quinn's resume and credentials. I thought a shortcoming of his candidacy was he doesn't mention anything about septic inspections, septic approvals, septic regulations. I know he has some experience as a health agent, obviously in a town that has a sewer, because it doesn't from this appear that he's focused on an aspect of the job that I think is a pretty significant duty of the board. I don't know if he has the technical qualifications. I have no doubt, based on his resume, that he could come up to speed on those pretty quickly. I did think one of the other candidates had some experience as an architect with those regulations, but I don't feel strongly in either case. I also wondered with Dr. Quinn, there was a focus on food inspections, and I didn't know if that was something that the Board of Health actually does itself, or whether that's something that's contracted out.
I'd be happy to respond to that. The Board of Health does do food inspections. In fact, we do them, I believe, quarterly, and our agent performs the food inspections under a separate contract, and they are quite a critical aspect of what the board does. Those are what keep the food establishments in town up to standards and up to meeting the state standards. They are reviewed for cleanliness, they are reviewed for best practice, they are reviewed for temperatures in their freezers and their refrigerators. Their grease traps are evaluated and so forth. It's a fairly thorough evaluation, and frankly, I'm glad you asked, because it's one that most of the public doesn't know about, that we do these inspections, and because we do these inspections, these properties are kept up to standard. However, let me digress if I may. This process, I gather, I believe we're all sitting here as 5 equals, and I'm not sure if there would be additional nominations, because I should explain that before I knew there were going to be any candidates coming forward, I encouraged Keisha Lifton to come forward and be willing to serve on the board. She ran for a seat on the board, I believe, 3 years ago, and certainly has credentials and interest in the job. And therefore, at this time, I would like to nominate Keisha Lifton to fill the vacancy and ask for a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay,
Again.
so we have 2 folks
Right.
who've been nominated and seconded. But just, if I could speak, but why I seconded and why I do think Christopher Quinn's most appropriate to step into this role, hitting the ground running. I think he does have considerable experience, and he's the president of the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards. He's not only a physician, he's also tuned into what's happening at the state and a variety of city levels. I think we do, speaking to the septic issue, we do have a health agent that addresses a lot of the technical aspects of septics and wells and so forth in the town. So you folks bring a lot of expertise as well. So I think, again, all 3 candidates would serve us very well here. But for me, Chris jumped out, so I'm obviously on that mode. So do we want to take a vote to see where it goes on each of these that have been nominated? Or do we want to have further discussion?
Do you want to nominate the 3rd one, just so that's out there, or?
I don't
think we're
think
talking about
that's
2 folks.
necessary.
Yeah, I think we're talking
The
2
board,
folks.
the board brought forth to you 2 recommendations. If you had someone else entirely that you wanted to nominate, I think that should be discussed also.
I also wanted to mention there was a Board of Health meeting that I attended, I can't recall, a few weeks ago. It was because it was dealing with an issue with Whitney Farms, and I knew that it would be continuing over, so I wanted to start collecting information about what I would be dealing with when I came on the board. So at that meeting, there were scheduled appointments. They went very quickly. There was a lot of recessing taking place during the meeting, and Dr. Quinn happened to be at that meeting as well, so we got a chance to chat and about some of the things in the meeting minutes and past meeting minutes. And he actually, even though he may not have experience with well and septic necessarily, he seemed to have a good grasp of the concepts and had good comments and thoughtful comments and observations about things. So.
Just in my experience, it's very hard to get a full doctor participate in town government. They're often very busy, high demand. And to have a doctor on a board of health is, wow, that's a coup in our feather in our hat. So I am influenced by Bill Worth's views.
Yes.
He was quite eloquent. I wish I had that with me so I could enter into the record here, but it was, does anybody have it?
I recall seeing it as well. It was pretty clear.
Let me point out that I'm in complete agreement with your assessment of Dr. Quinn. I would just like to point out that Keisha Lifton is a known entity in town. She is an avid town volunteer. She's been on numerous committees, and she has a reputation for working at what she says she will do. She has a reputation for coming through and actively participating and contributing. And for those are the qualities for which that I felt I should bring her candidacy forward.
Appreciate that.
I might say that I like her, and she's a part of our energy
Absolutely.
committee, and I've appointed her numerous times in the past. This isn't, in my support for Dr. Quinn, it is not intended in any way to say anything negative.
It's not interpreted that way. I'm just
she's-
advocating for my candidate, is what I'm telling you. All right, I mean, it's the way it goes, you know. One does not take away from the other one when one advocates for a different position.
Right. Well, seeing no comments from the audience here at this stage, I think we should take a vote here. So let's start with, in order, Dr. Quinn. All those in favor of appointing Dr. Quinn to the Board of Health, raise your hand. Okay, that's 4. All those in favor of appointing?
No, I think you're done.
We're done?
No, you're done.
Okay, well, congratulations to Dr. Quinn. We appreciate that he's stepping up here. We also appreciate the other folks who have expressed their interest and were willing to serve.
And as the chairman of the Board of Health, I look forward to Dr. Quinn's participation, and I believe that he will be a tremendous asset to the board. I have read his responses to our questions. I've read his CV. There are dimensions there that we have vast opportunity to increase the activities of the board in the support of the community.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm reminded it has to be a roll call vote, so.
Fine.
Mr. Durensis for Dr. Quinn.
I vote aye for Dr. Quinn.
Mr. John. Mr. Caruso, aye for Dr. Quinn. Ms. Beardsley.
Aye for Dr. Quinn.
Mr. Lifford, nay.
Thank you. All right.
Dr. Quinn is elected a member of the Board of Health. Congratulations to her if she's watching.
That being the only business of this Board of Health meeting, I hereby adjourn the Board of Health meeting. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so that covers all the things on my page of agenda, gentlemen.
So I move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you very much. Well done.